Dharma eva hato hanti dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. If we preserve dharma, if we follow dharma, then dharma will protect us. If we protect dharma, dharma will protect us. If we flout dharma, if we kill dharma, then dharma will kill us. Is it not happening everywhere in polluting nature? Are we not getting killed in the process? Everybody is now having suffering from the pollution, but maybe because of some profit, some other emergency or immediacy, that to increase our industrial civilization and all, we have polluted nature so much that by the nature itself we are getting killed. There we have violated the dharma, the fundamental principle. The earth existed for millions of years without any problem. After the industrial revolution, within 200 years, everything is gone almost. Temperature rise, water rise, this, that, pollution, carbon, everywhere. So the whole, our greed, there is nothing wrong in the industrial revolution. The wrong is in our trade, that we got lost by the materialistic greed. We did not keep the balance by keeping to this yoga. If we had not lost the anchor in our soul, then our material civilization also would have been used in a balanced manner. We would not have become slave to the material civilization. Now we are slave to it. We would have been real master of the material civilization. Our country has seen the unimaginable wealth, amazing wealth for thousands of years. Even then they did not lose this anchor in our eternal dharma, which has happened after 1750. Even during the Muslim rule also we did not lose it. It has happened only after 1750. So, dharma means, this is called dharma, the fundamental law of sustenance. We have to study, think, we have to know. Once we have learned dharma, then keeping our base on that dharma, we are supposed to earn artha, earn for livelihood. Those days, after 12 years or so of Gurukula education, there used to be Samavartana, like our convocation. That is the bidding farewell to the students. In that case, two kinds of students were there. One is very rare, those who would say that now I have understood the supremacy of this eternal truth and I don't want to pursue any more artha and kama. I would like to pursue moksha straight away. That is, I want to take up sannyasa and pursue this goal of knowledge. Very few. They were given Naishthika Brahmacharya. After the Brahmacharya, they would become Naishthika Brahmacharya. Why Naishthika? Because they are Nishtha for the Shreyas. That Nishtha for the ultimate knowledge. Because they don't have the desire for artha and kama, that fulfilling desires, etc. Very rare few would be like that. Those who would say like that. Like Maitri, Yajnavalkya Maitri Sambhada, you know. Yajnavalkya, he was a great knower, but he wanted to take up sannyasa. He had two wives, Maitreyi and Katyayani. And he wanted to finally take up sannyasa. He says at his Jabani, his words, that I would like to enjoy the Jivan Mukti Ananda. He was a Jivan Mukta, he was a knower, but he was not getting the full joy because of the two wives must be. So, Katyayani was given to property and all. She was having Vishaya Buddhi. And Maitreyi was a Brahma Vidushi. She was always given to knowledge. So when Yajnavalkya was going, he called Maitreyi and told her that I am taking up sannyasa, I am walking off. So that you don't have any more quarrel he did not use, but any more relationship between yourselves. I have divided my property. He had lot of property also. I have divided my property between two of you, Katyayani and Maitreyi. So there won't be any further confusion about the property. Now I want to leave. Please give me farewell. I would leave. Then Maitreyi said that, what for you are going? For Jivan Mukti Ananda. By whatever property you are given, by that will I get that? Yajnavalkya said, no, surely not. By any property or wealth you cannot get it. Then Maitri's statement, it's a famous statement used in various novels and various places. Yenaham namritasyam tenaham kim kuryam. Maitri said, Yena aham na amritasyam. Yena aham na amritasyam. By which I will not become immortal. Tena aham kim kuryam. By that what shall I do? I am not interested in that. You give me something by which I will become immortal. You are giving me property. I am not interested in that. Then starts the Yajnavalkya Maitri Samvada. That is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. All the highest truths have been spoken of there. All of you have doubts about Punarjanma and all. Those are also discussed there. Everything is discussed in Brihadaranyaka. One is those who are straight away like Maitri. This is how you should remind me this link, because I am going from here to there to give you the link. In the process, I lose the beginning point. So, there are some rare few disciples like Maitri, those who would say that I don't want Artha and Kama, I would like to pursue this path. So, they will be given Naishthika Brahmacharya. They will remain with the Guru, or maybe sometimes the Guru will send him to another Guru also. It depends on the situation. Various situations are there. But he will take to this life. And the others will get married and doing some Arthoparjana. That is for Artha and Kama they would go. But Artha they will gain not flouting Dharma. That is the most important point. Remaining in Dharma they will have to earn. Not flouting Dharma. And also remaining in Dharma they have to satisfy their Kama. So the Dharma will tell what kind of Kama they can satisfy. There are various directions and general directions also, that it should not be harmful to any others. For you have to, when you fulfill your desire, it should not be harmful to others. Your desire should not be harmful to others. That is a righteous desire. Not only that, you should not become a slave to the desire or to the greed. Then it is not proper, not on Dharma. Moreover, while studying Dharma, they will know that the ultimate fulfillment does not lie in any wealth, na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagena ike amritatvamana shuhu. Na karmana na prajaya na dhanena tyagena ike amritatvamana shuhu. Similarly, Nachiketa is telling Yamaraja, Nachiketa is telling Yamaraja, na vittena tarpaniyo manushyo. Man can never be satiated by any amount of wealth, be it a kingship of the entire world or 3 worlds or 7 worlds, be it anything, be it 1,000 years of life. The Nachiketa statement, I will come in the next course of Kathopanishad here, I will read in detail. So, they have, this is very important point, you should try to understand this, because it is not, I have not found it written anywhere. Because we had to sometime address the students of colleges and all, and they would not like to listen to anything where you have to remove the desire. That is, you speak about desirelessness, all of them will run away or ridicule you. So how to put before them that thought and inquiry, that gave me this truth, that this is what it is. That suppose you know what I have been explaining the last 2 days also, that anything you gain, it is not going to fulfill you ultimately. That part when you have understood, there is nothing wrong in getting married. Suppose one is wanting to marry a girl. Let him marry the girl, but let him not get deluded that by marrying the girl I will become fulfilled ever and I will be in the heaven of flowers and all those things. That is not going to happen. After marrying, there will be only problems and problems generally. Otherwise, some other things also will be there. Various things will be there. But it is not an ultimate fulfillment. By making a building, we think that once the building comes, we will all be happy. My family also will be happy. But when the building comes, it creates more quarrel. Because then you have got the building and your other desires, other hatreds, they are filling your mind. So if you analyze the whole world, man has lived in this earth for thousands and thousands of years. Not a single person has become permanently fulfilled by fulfilling any desire. It is not going to be. The Shastra's explanation used to put in their mind this solid realization that anything we do, it is not going to fulfill me ultimately. The fulfillment lies somewhere else. Once you understand this, then you are free to do anything. Knowing that I will marry that girl, but not get deluded that after marrying I will be in the heaven and I will be. But I feel that she is a good match for me and I would like to marry to have a proper life or so. You marry and thereafter some plus will come, some minus will come. You have to take both. At that time you cannot say that, start repenting that, oh, why did I marry this girl? The other girl would have been better. By saying that, nothing you can gain. You only make your life miserable. So if you know beforehand that I will marry, but I am not deluded that by marrying I will become happy, then you will find that you can make a very dispassionate, impersonal choice also in marrying. I am taking the example of marrying, but it is true of anything. We will open a factory, but let us not think that everything is in the profit and I will be happy when the profit is high. I am making a factory for a certain social purpose. It will serve the society. We will have some product which will serve the society, and in the process I will have some sustenance also. But let us not think that that is going to fulfill me forever. With that knowledge, when we do anything we want to do, then very soon we can outlive the desire. There lies the truth. I wanted to say only that. You outlive the desires by that. When you do it, knowing that it is not going to fulfill me forever, you do it, but you will find very soon you have outlived the desire. You will no more be slave to the desire. Do you get any meaning in this? Do it and you see. You will soon outlive. That is why the Rajas were leaving their kingdom at the age of 45, 50, latest 50. In our country, this was also part of the dharma. Now, what happens is that what Krishna is saying, that they have all forgotten. With Kala, this has got spoiled. That is why Dhritarashtra is holding on to the kingdom. He is not leaving it. Dhritarashtra, particularly he was holding on. He was meant to hold on. Because he was blind. He did not have the real vision. So the Rajas, they used to rule very well with full knowledge and everything. And when the time comes, they would select a proper heir to the throne. If he had such children, it is fine. If the son is not proper, he will find out somebody else. Sagara had banished his own son because the son was not a proper person. And being a king's son, if he is given some special position, then it will be havoc. So he simply exiled him. Like that, the next person will be selected, and as soon as the Raja finds that he is a able ruler, I have found a successor, he would leave, went off for Vanaprastha or Sannyasa. How could they leave? Because they had outlived the desire for kingdom or anything, whatever had been there. If at all something was there in rulership, fighting, etc., winning or becoming the Chakravarti of the whole world, whatever he could fulfill, he had done. But that will not give him the fulfillment that they knew. So soon the time comes, he gives it leaves the throne to a proper fit person and walks off. Are you able to appreciate these things? This is a very, very great truth. By becoming slave to any desire, any sense indulgence, we can never become free of that desire. Only by becoming master of that, and we become master of that when this simple, foolish delusion is removed, that it is not going to fulfill me forever. There might be some sensory requirement, there might be some mental requirement, there might be some other social requirement, I will do it, fine. But let us not get deluded that this is going to fulfill me forever. If that knowledge is there, it is enough. Then Artha Kama will never be able to hold you. It is based on dharma. So Artha Kama will lead you to moksha. You can outlive Artha Kama and go straight away walk for moksha. This is what our country is, our civilization is. So, सांख्य योगौ पृथक बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पंडिताः एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यक् उभयोर विन्दते फलम्. You hold on to one and you get the result. In either case it's the same. Yat sankhyaih prapyate sthanam tad yogairapi gamyate. This is 5th chapter 5th verse. 5th chapter 5th verse where I was. Yat sankhyaih prapyate sthanam tad yogairapi gamyate. By Sankhya, that is the Kevala Jnana Nishtha, exclusive knowledge pursuit, whatever you will attain the goal, that same goal you will attain by this yoga of Bhagavad Gita also. Yoga ihi api. The Samatva Yoga. You will attain the same goal. Ekam Sankhyam cha Yogam cha yah pashyati sa pashyati. One who sees the Sankhya, the Kevala Jnana Nishtha and Yoga Marga as the same, as one, he is the real seer, he is the real visionary. Because he finds that the two are different depending on their practitioner. One is fit for this kind of practitioner, another is fit for other kind of practitioner. But they will take us to the same goal, same purification of the mind, same attainment of the mind and intelligence, the same ultimate attainment. Everything will be the same. So he says that ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha yah pashyati sapashyati. He is the real seer. This I was explaining. Jnana yogena sankhyanam, karma yogena yoginam. The interpretation of this verse is not over. Prabuddham vimuktam vikaradihinam prasannam sada nitya bodhasvarupam param nishchalam nirgunam sarvarupam bhajeham sadanusmarami pranomi. Hari Om Tat Sat. We shall chant the few verses, whatever we have done, then we'll start. That is 3rd chapter, beginning verses. Arjuna vacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishrene vavakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyohamapnuyam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin dvividha nishtha Pura prokta maya nagha Jnana yogena sankhyanam Karma yogena yoginam na karmanam anarambhat naishkarmyam purushosnute na cha sanyasanadeva siddhim samadhigacchati. So up to 3 we have discussed in great detail. Yesterday I went over to different other chapters also to explain the words of Shloka 3. Now Shloka 4. So first he said that the two, they are only dvividha nishtha, they take us to the same goal. Only the path has to be selected according to the fitness of the person, according to the deserving qualities, whatever he has, or the qualities the person, the parameters of his character, his mind, intelligence, etc. Depending on that, the path has to be selected. So I also said that very few are generally fit for the Kevala Jnana Nishtha or Jnana Yoga. Most of the people are fit for Karma Yoga, and this is the Bhagavad Gita's excellence, because Upanishadic Vidya was restricted to very few persons in the hermitage only. Krishna, or you can say Vedavyasa, introduced this Bhagavad Gita in Mahabharata, by which he made available the same goal of the Upanishads to everybody, those who are employed in any field of work, with the only one condition, that they seriously want to attain that goal, and they have to, in that case, change their attitude with which they are performing the actions. That we have been discussing again and again. So, it was a revolutionary introduction of Bhagavad Gita, that the Upanishadic goal was presented for everybody on earth, that anybody can follow it, provided they are ready to change their attitude. They replace the carrot of happiness at the end of the work by understanding that the happiness is a offshoot of our own mind, and understanding that the happiness is disturbed by the desires. So the happiness does not lie in the fulfillment of the desire, but elimination of the desire. On that understanding, that when the mind becomes desire free, even if we have some desire, we can pursue it, but knowing that it is not going to fulfill me forever, then there is no trouble. That is what the kings also were doing, everybody were doing that. Once we know that this I want to do because of some necessity, maybe some physical necessity, sensory necessity, or mental necessity, some support, this, that, I can do it. But very well understanding that it is not only going to bring me sukha, it will bring sukha, dukkha both, and I should be ready to embrace both sukha and dukkha equally. And the ultimate fulfillment in life does not lie in any of these enjoyments, but having a mind which is free of all desires. There lies the ultimate fulfillment. Knowing that, we can pursue, and when we pursue any desireful activity with this knowledge, then we find that very soon we outlive the desires. The desires themselves get sublimated by that. We will no more be slave to the desires, because already we have overcome the slavery, knowing that you cannot delude me anymore. We are deluded that it will make me fulfilled. Once we understand that, then you can tell the desire very well that, well, I will feed you, but knowing very well that you are not going to catch hold of me forever. I will fulfill, I will enjoy you with a mastery, that I will not become slave to you. Suppose when initially we need money, there is no harm in getting money. Money is necessary. It is a necessity for having the food, having habitation. For everything money is necessary. But what happens is that when we start getting money, we want more and more money to have more and more comfort, and very soon we realize that the money is not bringing in happiness. We have become slave to the money, and we have started accumulating money. We are not using it for happiness really, and we are afraid of losing money also. Money becomes a point of competition which takes away our happiness, and we become slave to the money. So once we understand that by such thing we are never going to get fulfilled, then we can pursue whatever desires, minimum desires, or the needful, whatever is there. We will not have the greed then. We will not be slave to the desires. So that is the Karma Yoga Bhagavad Gita is suggesting. Now this Karma Yoga also, although we are calling it Karma Yoga, it needs a full understanding of the truth. So it is a combination, we should understand that it is a combination of knowledge and karma and bhakti also. As we study the whole Bhagavad Gita, we will understand that it is a great synthesis presented in Bhagavad Gita. It is wrong to say, आप भक्ति मार्ग में हैं या ज्ञान मार्ग में हैं. वैसा कोई मार्ग नहीं है. जो सचमुच के साधक है उनके लिए भक्ति मार्ग, ज्ञान मार्ग, कर्म मार्ग बोल के कुछ नहीं है. तीनों मिलके ही होता है. कोई जब सचमुच के साधक बनते हैं तो भक्ति के बिना वो ज्ञान मौखिक ज्ञान है, वो सचमुच के ज्ञान नहीं है. ज्ञान के बिना भक्ति मोहकारी है, वो उससे सही भक्ति नहीं बनेगी. To have the proper Shuddha Bhakti, it cannot happen without knowledge. May not be the full knowledge of it, but knowledge is necessary to have Bhakti. And in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will find that the Bhakti and Jnana are just tossed this way, that Bhakti leads to Jnana, Jnana leads to Bhakti. Like that he has represented there. Because ultimately what we call Shuddha Bhakti and we call Shuddha Jnana, Bhakti is trilling, so we say Shuddha Bhakti, and Jnana is pulling, so we say Shuddha Jnana. Ultimately this Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddha Jnana both are same, identical.